we're recording now. Okay, great. So now when you open this, it will open in presentation. Now what we want to do is to set this up as a B patcher. We need to have inputs and outputs to add. We have to add inputs and outputs to this. First of all, we don't need this window stuff anymore. We're gonna put that external. We're gonna put that in the other patch, but we don't need it to be part of our B patcher because we don't want each B patcher to be going full screen and overriding other B patchers. And if they're all having the same full screen as escape key, then that's really gonna get messed up because one of them will be going full screen while another one will be going minimized, and then it'll be replacing. I'm sure you guys probably had that problem when you were making this.
When I was following your video, I hit toggle before you said.
Yeah,
Exact same thing.
Yeah, exactly. So we're just gonna not deal with that in this patch. So I'm gonna cut that part out, and I'm going to add an outlet, and you can just take it out of the P window because that will just pass the matrix that comes in. It'll pass it right out that outlet. And we don't need this, the Q Metro. First of all, for whatever reason, I think it's a new behavior in Max 7 that these they play without any Metro. Like you used to always have to have a Metro to make it output frames. For whatever reason, I haven't been turning this on and the thing plays anyway. But I'm going to continue putting the Metro in there because that's the way I always did it. And I think it's a good idea for you guys to use that paradigm. I think you can override it and make it only output frames when it gets a Metro by adding a parameter to the JIT movie called @automatic 0. Then it will only output frames when it gets bangs. So let's do that, automatic 0, but we don't need this Q Metro stuff. We're actually going to have this fed by an inlet instead. So that way we can have one Metro in our master patch that's feeding all of these B patchers. We don't have to have independent clocks for every single movie player. We can have one shared clock. All right, so now instead we're going to have an inlet over here. So pass the inlet into the movie player. Okay. And let's see. I think that's all I ended up doing to this. And now go ahead and save this as, and we're just call it GUI video player. All one word. Save it somewhere in your Max 7 directory in your documents. A good place to save projects is under the projects file. So save it as GUI video player. I'm going to cancel. I'm going to pretend like I did. Great. And then, now you got this GUI video player. And now let's make a new patcher. And we're going to call this class, so file save as, and call this class 6. I'm going to call mine class 6A because I already have a class 6. Okay, so now we're going to put these B patchers in our patch. So let's add a B patcher object. And you get a blank box here that looks like a comment box. You have to go into the, get out of there. You have to go into the inspector and actually set what file you're going to use to make this B patcher. Down here under patcher file, go say choose, and then find your GUI video player. and choose that. And if you made it look pretty, you should be able to make this just barely the same size, maybe slightly bigger. If your file, if you end up having like a whole bunch of space, whoops, like this or something, and now look, I got this weird offset in my B-patcher and I can't get that to move. Just, you want to make sure that in the file that this B-patcher is using in that GUI video player, that you select everything in presentation mode and move it right to the very corner.
How did you get it to appear?
Yeah. It's like open your box.
How did I get what?
Yeah. Can you finish it from the beginning? I just missed.
What did you miss?
I just missed how you opened it.
How did I open this? I opened the file GUI video player, the one we just saved. GUI video player.
Oh, that box.
Yeah, I mean, like from the new picture.
Uh-huh.
Like how
How did you get this?
Yeah.
This is a B-patcher object. And then in the B-patcher, you have to go down here and choose which patcher file. In the inspector for the B-patcher, choose patcher file. And choose GUI video player, the one we just made. So, in your GUI video player, if yours wasn't right up to the edge and you got all this extra space, go back to the GUI video player, move it to the edge, and save it. And look, it automatically changes itself in this version over here. You don't have to go back and reload it or anything. And if you made other changes to this, like I believe your guys's don't have volume and rate or and loop points, or maybe you have rate or something, but you don't have volume. Go back into the GUI video player, and let's add those to presentation. Volume, we probably definitely want volume on presentation mode, because what if the movie has sound and we don't want the sound? We can set the volume to 0. So make sure to add these volume, the loop points, and the rate. Make sure we add these to presentation. Go to options, or sorry, object, and go to add to presentation. Mine are already in presentation. And then in presentation mode, just move some stuff around so that it looks pretty. And you can do it like I did, or you can move it around and do it whatever way you want. And then once you've made those changes, go ahead and save it, and you'll see that your B-patcher in the other view will conform to your changes. So if I no longer wanted these loop points, for example, and I removed these from presentation, and I go back into presentation, and now I save it, you see that this version over here got rid of it.
It's weird.
Get
Mine
rid of
isn't updating.
Yours doesn't update? Are you running? Do you have Windows? No.
So this is the
Mhm.
S6.
Okay.
Oh, there.
Did you save it?
Yeah.
Just get the project.
Will you refresh?
No, if I just want to
Shouldn't
think it's
have
like,
to.
okay, I'll look at the video.
There's- Where did you save it?
I saved it in my files right here.
Okay, but you didn't save it in the doc in the jitters.
Finding a way to
So
save
make
it.
sure you save
But
your
that's-
files.
I couldn't save it in
The what
there,
part?
in the directory.
Okay, if you don't save it in the Mac 7 directory, then Max won't.
I mean, it wouldn't, I couldn't access it, it was grayed out.
Mac 7 directory. Where is the Mac 7 directory in your
Just the
documents?
inspector window, and then it'll tell you open your presentation.
Documents?
View.
Mac 7
Inspector window, yeah. Go to-
Okay.
you
Double
go to
click.
So it's not in.
a
Projects.
basic,
Got it.
and then
You
view
save it in the
section.
Mac 7, then
Oh,
your
okay.
Max will know where it
Sweet.
is. Otherwise,
Okay.
it it doesn't know where your files are stored. And so try it now. And now reload in the other patch. Reload the patcher file for this new version that you've saved in the Max 7 directory.
There we go.
So yeah, I think if your guys' aren't updating, it's probably because of where you saved it. Is anybody else's not updating? You guys are all updating? Great, okay, cool.
Where?
I think
Why
that's
would
what
it
her
not?
issue is. I don't know yet, but I believe you're supposed to save somewhere in the Max 7 document,
Well, I
Or
saved it
did
in
you
our
not?
desktop folder,
and it's still,
and it worked fine.
yeah.
I was just gonna save it on the desktop.
Oh, maybe.
It still hasn't updated.
Yeah, I don't
You
know.
saved it? 'Cause once I saved it, it updated.
Yeah, it's
I
working
did
for
that.
everybody.
Did you save it and then try recreate
Yeah,
the object again?
I
All right, delete that B patcher. New B patcher.
Does it need to?
Now go to and choose the file. Choose the one that you saved.
Okay. Right, so now let's see. Shouldn't it open it?
Is that the new one with the changes you made?
If I can use something.
Does it need to have
Where's the
same
file-
file path?
In the subpatch if I wanted to.
Hmm?
Do they need to have the same file
Yeah,
path
it should.
structure?
I mean, I can do this, but. No, but did
Like
you
is
go
class
over the
6 and
presentation
GUI
here?
like in different
Oh,
Make-
locations
the
maybe?
V patch.
Yeah, do you have more than one for
Yeah, yeah,
it?
yeah.
GUI
I'm in the
video
wrong one.
player?
I don't think so. I did have another version, but I made sure it was like that one. Oh wait, now there is no document. There's another one.
Well, Ian was like, oh, you're teaching.
I mean, maybe it's just how I
photometric
wrote.
class.
Maybe it's the.
I don't know. Yours is being weird.
Okay.
So I just like.
I'm guessing that it's that they both have to be. Maybe they both have to be in the same directory. Your class 6 Max Pat and this GUI video player has to be in the same directory. That's everybody else is not doing what yours is doing though. So I don't
I feel
know.
like Max is just glitchy. I just restart it sometimes when it just doesn't.
Just
work.
try restarting.
Yeah, Max crashed on me earlier.
Yeah.
Today.
What are you doing?
Okay.
I can't say in public. That was a lot funnier.
Nice try.
All right. So you should now if you look carefully, your B patcher should have an inlet and an outlet. They're hard to see, but they're there. Let's go ahead and let's create our Q Metro. Q Metro 33. Put a toggle. Send the bangs into the B patcher's input. And let's copy this B patcher, duplicate it. So now we have 2 channels. Send the Q Metro into the second channel as well.
Sorry, did you say a toggle or a bang?
Toggle.
Okay.
Oh yeah, this is a toggle. Sorry. Here, let me try
It's
to
just
zoom
like
in
the-
for y'all.
Oh, there. There's Max. There. Cool.
Okay. Full screen. There we go. Okay. So we have these. They should work. Go ahead and turn it on. Let me load a couple of videos. Yeah. Great. I want to turn my volume off. Okay. Maybe I do want my loop points in there. I like the way that looks. So I'm going to save that.
Jackson,
Yeah.
for some reason my 2 channel cannot play different.
You're always playing the same video?
I mean, if I change one channel, the other channel will.
You must have, did you use like some kind of send and receive? And they're the same in both ones. So what did you do on the read or something? Did you do it a little different than what I did, or how did you end up?
So I didn't. Okay, so I didn't link directly from the U menu into the read.
Uh-huh.
I use the same object and the receive object.
Okay, so if you want to do that, what you're going to have to do is add in your original. You're going to have to add an argument to give it a unique send and receive. For now, can you just directly connect it
Yeah, sure.
with that? Because I'm going to show you guys how to do arguments in a minute, but and you can add that back the way it is here once I go over arguments. Great. All right, so I updated this, so I got my loop points back in there. B-ball and blading. Great. So if I wanted to mix these, this is the matrix, comes out this thing here. We can do a jit.p window. And you should see the same window, the same video coming out. Ugh. Stop it. Okay. That one's making sound too. There. So if we wanted to mix this, we could do a quick and dirty way is just to add the two signals together. And to do that, there's an object called jit.op, and that will do various different kinds of math operations on those on the matrices, and adding addition is one of those operations. So you can go jit.op at op, because we have to tell it what operation we want to use, at op plus. Now send this one in, or send the output from one of them into this inlet, the output from the other one into this inlet. Get another P window, send it in there, and now there's a quick and dirty additive mix of these two video players. But we don't have the ability doing this. We have no ability to crossfade between the two videos. So if we wanted to crossfade, what would we have to do? What happens in a crossfade?
Opacity blend?
Well, I guess there's several kinds of crossfades. I don't know, an opacity crossfade could be one. But this, when we're working with matrices, they do have that's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it, and we could look at that later. Another way of doing it is doing an intensity fade, where one of them's intensity goes down as the other one's intensity is coming up. The brightness, right?
Intensity be alpha?
And then you add them together. No, actually, alpha is different. Alpha is definitely can equate to intensity, because if you, say, have a black background and you start making your pixels transparent, they're going to get darker and darker and darker until they're gone. But if you had, for say a white background, which in jitter there's no reason why you can't have any color background that you want, then it's going to be getting more and more white as they become. Or if you had a green background, they'd be getting more and more green as you make it transparent. So we'll look at alpha channel later, but for right now we're just going to work with intensities. So if you turn down the intensity of one and turn up the intensity of the other, and then you're adding those different intensities together, then you can crossfade from one channel to another channel. So in order to create the intensity change on each channel before adding them, we do, instead of doing an addition operator, we do a multiplication operator. And instead of multiplying one channel by the other channel, we're simply multiplying one channel by a value between 0 and 1, right? Because if we multiply a signal by 1, we get the same signal, full intensity. If we multiply a signal by 0.5, every pixel in that signal is going to be half of its value, so it'll be half of its bright. So we can do a jit.op at op multiplication and pass the channel A into this. And instead of putting channel B into this inlet, let's just put a float over here and send this into a P window. So by default, the value for that second inlet is 0. So right now we're multiplying by 0, so it's black. Go ahead and start moving this value up towards 1. You see it gets brighter and brighter and brighter until you have full image at 1. You can even go past 1, but it doesn't do anything because of the kind of matrix we have. It'll only take values between 0 and 255. And if you're multiplying past value, past 1, then you're going to value above 255, and it just ignores that because it's maxed out at 255. So yeah, this does. So what you could do actually is go into the inspector for this number box. Make sure I have it highlighted, and then go down here and say max instead of maximum value of 1 and a minimum value of 0. Now this number box will only fade between 0 and 1, and it'll stop. All right, so we can do that. But what if we want to have, instead of directly connecting a number, what if we want a GUI interface object like a slider? Well, we can do that too. Slider is the object. Yeah.
Sorry. Where do you set like how many point values? Because I'm just going literally. I just go 0 to 1. It doesn't give me like 0.9.
Right. So it depends if you're dragging with your mouse. It depends on where you click on the number box. If you click further to the right, it will give you more precision. If you do it further to the left, it will give you less precision.
So my videos they were playing and they just stopped. That's probably a glitch, right?
Probably. Did you have it set on loop right here? The play bar set to loop.
Well, they won't play more than one frame now.
Yeah, it sounds like yours is glitching out.
The other thing was a glitch. It updated.
Why don't you try just downloading the one from the website? Because I bet you there's just some problems with your code, and instead of spending hours to figure out where they are, where those problems are, go to the website for our class and just download the example one. It should just work just like the one I'm showing you guys. So go to go to the class 5 and scroll down, and there it is, class 5 max pack. Download over there to the right. There you go. Download that. You're going to have to add some outlets and some inlets. So just add some outlets and inlets, and get rid of the QMetro. And add an inlet there. Yep. And add an outlet. Yep. And go from here to the outlet. Okay. And just now save that as the GUI player. Okay, try that. Anybody else have any problems? All right. Let's continue on. Did I answer? I can't remember if I answered your question, Trey.
You did, yeah. It
Oh.
was placement of the mouse and.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I remember that from the first day of class.
All right. Let's see. Where am I? I haven't even looked at my notes once yet.
Jonathan, this is the second day.
Okay, so we have this. We want to use this slider, right? I'm going to make my slider horizontal. Remember, sliders will automatically adjust their orientation based on the aspect ratio of the box. So if you want it horizontal, just make it wide, and it should switch automatically. Now, if we really wanted to, we could just go in here and change the inspector properties for this slider and give it a range of between 0 and 1 and have it be a float output. But I want you guys to use more objects to teach you some stuff. So we're going to leave it as default value, which by default the slider is meant to be used kind of as a MIDI interface, because originally Max was mostly MIDI based. So by default it gives a value of between 0 and 127, which is the same range of notes as MIDI notes. So it'll output a value between 0 and 127. So we can scale that to between 0 and 1. Scaling, you'll use scaling always in Max. You know, half of what I use Max for is what I call massaging data, where I get data from a sensor or from an interface or from some other program, and I having to scale it to match the parameters of something else that I want to do. And the datas don't necessarily equate to each other until you do a whole bunch of scaling. So you'll find yourself doing scaling a lot in Max. So the scale object, scale, has 3 arguments. Well, actually no, 4 arguments. You put the low input, the high input, and then the low scale output and the high scale output. So basically, you just construct this as a sentence. I'm scaling 0 to 127 between the values of 0 period, because I'm making it a float, and 1 period. So those are the 4 arguments. Scale 0 to 127 to 0 and 1, between 0 and 1. Now I can take the output of this slider and I can pass it to this value over here. And now when I slide that, full 1 goes full intensity and 0 goes to the other. Okay, let's go ahead. Let's make this bigger. I gotta zoom out. I need more real estate. Let's duplicate this stuff. Actually, just the op and the number box. Duplicate that and send this one into here. And also send this scale object. Actually, no, we need a second scale object. So duplicate this scale object and send that one into there. And connect this slider to the other scale object's input. Okay, that's great, but the problem is they're both, if you look, the values are both the same, right? We need to do is flip one of them around so that when one's going up, the other is going down. It's really simple to do that. All you have to do is change the parameters of your scale object and just flip around the output values. So, things are starting to get a little messy. Let me do a little cleanup here. I'm going to move this stuff down here. Okay. Great. So all you have to do is take this and make it, instead of go scaling 0 to 127 to 0 to 1, we scale 0 to 127 between 1 and 0. And do it on the left-hand side, the channel A. That way, when it goes towards this way, you get full intensity on that picture, and when it goes toward the other picture, you get full intensity on that one. So I guess we'll need another P window over here so that we can see this. So now if the slider is So now you can see that what's going on. It makes it either full on that picture or full on that picture. And now all we have to do is add these together. Duplicate this plus over here. Bring it down here. We can get rid of these P windows now. Actually, just keep one of them. Get rid of one of them. You can delete the line for that. And now go ahead and take the output of these of the two ops and put them as the inputs of the plus op. And now we've added those together to get the result. And now you have a mixer that mixes between the two channels. Let's encapsulate this so that we can clean it up. So let's select everything but the P window and the slider, and do a Shift Command P. No, Shift Command E to encapsulate. And we'll call this mixer cool. I don't know why those ended up. Oh, I know why they ended up in presentation mode, because I accidentally did Shift Command P, which is the shortcut for add to presentation. Doesn't matter. We don't look in there very often anyway. All right, so that's that. Let's see, what else did I want to show you guys? Is that all working for y'all?
I still can't get a video to play.
Almost.
Still can't get a video to play.
All right, I'll look at yours. Sounds to me like your
Quite
Max is just
and did it again,
glitching
and did it
everything.
again,
All right, well, it's not opening in presentation, so that's one thing. Go back into the file that you loaded. That one, right-click on the desktop. Sorry, right-click on the canvas. So go to Inspector window.
but,
Go down and say Open in Presentation. Okay, now save it. Okay, there you go. Now it opened in presentation. You might want to go into presentation and move those to be in a different location so that it's not so far down. Select everything. Drag it up to the top. Drag it right to the edge of the top. Yeah, you can even use the arrow keys to make it perfect if you want. Here, a little overlap, but that's okay. It doesn't really matter. And save it and close. And see, now those conformed right off the bat, so it is conforming the way it's supposed to.
yeah, no, it conformed as soon as before, after I
Did
played.
you? Okay, and so now grab a movie player, a movie file. Whoops. Lock your patcher.
You can't just press command.
You should be able to, yeah. Pick an actual movie.
I
Track one dot move. And hit play. Hit the play button. Yeah, it's not working. I don't know why. And go add a JIT.movie player to your just put one somewhere. Movie. Open the help files for that. Open movie help top. Try to get a movie to actually play in this. If it won't play in this, then it's not gonna play anywhere. Go to read. The movie. So I don't know what is wrong with your.
My energy.
Hmm?
My energy.
What?
Does it connect to anything?
Command E.
Okay.
I mean, I'm just wondering maybe
Shift
if it's just the
command.
edits I made.
I don't know what edits you made.
The ones that you said. I don't know.
Oh, right. Well, this is bang. This sends the bangs in there. So that's not it. I mean, what is that?
It's a
Int deck.
toggle that
No.
I like reduce and
All I would suggest is then for now, until you can get those to work, is to just grab the movie player that works in the help file and put it in here and just connect it.
Connect these bits.
Yes.
Mine for some reason doesn't work. What? So I don't know.
Well, first of all, you got an int here.
Hey,
So when now you're converting your float to an int.
So make that a float num, where you can just hit the F key.
Okay, so what's not working?
Yeah, delete. Yeah, there you go.
Oh, okay.
It's all these inlets for.
So I think that's.
Those are when I
Yeah.
use some
So that was
calculators.
whatever the value that was coming
Oh.
out of there was just getting converted back to an integer. So then your options are 0
Okay,
or 1.
so this, like, I'm not, I'm missing something. I'm just
Okay,
staring
what
at
is-
the wires going. The video's making me longer. So you're in this is the sub patcher? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And what's, the
that should
problem
work.
is your, well, I didn't put mine in the sub patcher yet. It
shouldn't
was
be
trying
that
to different.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else having problems? Yes.
The scalar.
Okay, so
That's
probably
just
go to
my
your
sine
mixer.
waves too.
Go to your mixer patch.
Okay,
See
then
what
there's
happened in
other
the
scale,
mouse.
right? And then your scale is going to the,
Okay, so
scale going to JIT off. Oh, there's another, there's another one. Oh, that's what it is. Let me delete this one.
okay,
There you go.
both of those are going in the same inlet. You gotta move it over. Move that one over to the other out. There you go. Now it should work.
Well, I just realized I have the JIT off plus that he put in the beginning.
No?
This is different from there.
Go back and
Okay, so I have the scale going into
let's have something else wrong too.
on floats going into to the right of the JIT off.
Yeah.
And then JIT off is going to.
The left of the JIT off is just coming from the video.
Okay, wait.
Yeah, they're going to
That's
the
why. I don't know what that's doing in there. That's not supposed to be in that patch.
And then is that going into anything else?
That was supposed to be outside the patch. Plus. There. It should work now. Reconnect that.
That's,
You
that's
had the
plus
wrong
was
outlet
when he was
patch to
showing
that.
us adding them together. Remember?
Because you had
It's like, oh, you use that. So you
encapsulated
don't
some
need
of
this. I
that
just leave
other
it.
stuff that I was
This
showing.
Yeah, that was just him showing like
Okay.
you can add them
Whoops.
together, but you don't have.
Okay.
Or you can do it with a multiply.
So is everybody's, for the most part, except for the glitchy kids up front, working? I'm sorry, glitchy kids. I don't have time to figure out what's going on yours. If you want, we can meet afterwards. I'm not today because I got a bunch of stuff going on. But if you want, we can meet sometime tomorrow or on Friday, and I can try to fix your issues and get your stuff working.
I got it working.
Oh, you got it working. Woo! All right. Okay, great. All right, so this is cool. We got it in a subpatcher, but you know what the problem with a subpatcher is that when you make changes, they don't conform. If you were to duplicate this mixer and have more than one mixer or something like that, and you made changes in one of these here, let me just show you guys. Let's just make a new patcher, a subpatcher. Let's just call it test. Okay. Now inside this, let's do just add a POC object, PAK, and just some nonsense words. I'm gonna do ABBA, BABA, and KABA. It doesn't matter. This is just a test. And Max doesn't care what you use. You can use nonsense for symbols. It doesn't care. And then now I'm gonna put up some other words up here like hello and canny and Manny. All right, great. So you guys can put different words. It doesn't matter. Put something inappropriate if you want. I don't care. All right.
Oh, I did.
Now let's take a message out over here. You can put a bang over here if you want. So if I just bang this as is, what's going to come out? Abba Baba Kaba, right? Because that's what's stored in there. Abba Baba Kaba. But if I put if I push this canny button, and then it should say Abby Canna Kaba, right? Because we're replacing that with canny. Okay, great. Close that. Now duplicate it. And duplicate it again. And now go back into this version now, this instance, right? So these are called instantiations of a subpatch. There are now 3 instantiations or 3 instances of this subpatch. So go into instantiation 2. And now hit Manny or something. So now it says hello Baba Manny. And now I'm going to go into 3 and I'm going to hit a couple different things. So this one says hello Canny Kaba. And if I look, they're all different, right? Now I've made changes in these, and now every single one is different, even though they're called the same thing, right? This one's Abby Canna Kaba, and this one is hello Babby Manny, and this one is hello Canny Kaba, right? And then say, even if I went even further, say, oh, this is kind of useless. I need inputs and outputs. And I go back into this and I go add an inlet. And I add an inlet and I add an outlet. And I close it. And now, look, now I got an inlet and an outlet over here. And I can put a bang, and I can have this come out and tell me what's in that. But these didn't conform those changes that I made. So if I added functionality to this subpatch, I'd have to go into every single subpatch and add that functionality again. You could do something like this. You could grab it and do a copy and then go over here and do a paste replace. And that would duplicate everything that was in there. But if you subsequently made changes again, it's not going to conform your changes. And you'll get into trouble. When you use the same subpatch, if you're going to use a subpatch more than once, you should try to make an external patcher so that your changes conform. And let me show you how to do that. It's really easy. So instead of having this be a subpatcher, if I know it's going to be something that I'm going to use more than once, I can make an external patcher. So make a new patcher, and let's see. Let's just make this patcher to, well, the first thing we're going to need is an inlet, right? Inlet. And let's make this have an op. Let's just make this a jit.op. Jit.op. And let's add another inlet so that I can get 2 channels into this. And an outlet. And now let's save this. Save this and save it in the same place in your projects folder or someplace where you know where it is. And let's call this matrix op. I'm calling mine matrix op too, but you just call yours matrix op. Then now in your patch over here, pretend that there's an object now called matrix op in Max. Matrix op. And there it is. It shows up. If you've saved it somewhere where Max knows where it is, like in your Max 7 directory, then it will show up here on your list. It will have this orange icon with a P telling you that that is a patch, a patcher, an external patcher. So now, and there it is. And look, you got your inputs and you got your outputs. And if you make changes in this matrix op, so say I wanted to have this dump outlet of this jit.op, I wanted to add another outlet so that the messages that come out of this, I can get access to those messages. And now I save it. And over here, you can see it's automatically conformed those changes. Now this has an outlet.
Hey Jackson, I can't just get mine. Like I see it when I start typing in matrix off,
Uh-huh.
but then I like click on it, it just won't let me.
Is everybody else's working?
Just
Right here, right?
matrix op. Yeah, click on it. Did you put a space?
In the title of the.
Yeah, no spaces in your titles. Can't put a space in the titles, and I'll show you why. Because a space is interpreted as an argument. Now, what is an argument? What do we know? We know that with objects, arguments are used to populate the attributes or whatever of the object. We can do the same thing to populate attributes or information in this external patcher. We can add arguments to it. So say we want this to be able to have a unique send and receive. That's what Seth had problems with earlier. He was using sends and receives in his B patcher, and because they all have the same named send and receive, all the B patchers are getting the same messages, and so everything's playing the same movie file instead of channel A playing this movie file and channel B playing that movie file. We want to be able to make those different instantiations of the movie player have unique send and receives if we use send and receives. So far we haven't had to because we've just been using inlets and outlets, and so we just direct hard patch to those inlets and outlets, and then everything gets discrete. But there's a lot of times where you're going to have just way too many patch cords going everywhere, and it's a lot better to use sends and receives. And sometimes you'll have more than one patch running, and those different patches have to talk to each other, and there's no way for you to draw a patch cord between two separate patchers. You have to use sends and receives. So if we want to make unique sends and receives on this matrix op, what we can do is we can add argument placeholders to this file. And so argument placeholders are, for patchers, they look like this. They look like a $sign and then the number of the argument. So if I do a $1, that will be replaced with the first argument that I put in after the name of the patcher file when I'm instantiating the patcher file.
$sign or number?
Sorry, £1, not $sign. $sign is the wild card when you're using messages. This is £1. So say I want the first argument to be what operation I'm using on this jit.op, right? I can say jit.op at op, right? But instead of having at op plus, I'm going to say at op £1. Save it. Go over here, matrix op, and now I'm going to put that argument, which is the operation that I wanted. So I'm going to have it be let's use subtraction. We haven't used that yet. Now I can go double click on this version of the file, of this instance of the file, where you have that argument, and now you see this replaced that negative. You replaced that £1 with the minus sign, making it that operation. You've replaced that value. You've used that placeholder. So if we wanted to use that to make unique sends and receives, go ahead and open that matrix op file again, or if you still have it open, great. And let's have a receive. And actually, let's make the operation. Let's make that argument 2. And we're going to make argument 1 the unique send and receive. So receive argument 1. So whatever we decide to name this on our first argument, this will be replaced on that receive object. And most of the messages and stuff always come in to the first inlet on jit.ops and stuff like that. So I'm going to send that to the first inlet. And then if I want to have a unique send, I can say send. Obviously, I wouldn't want to do send 1 because then I would be going around in a circle. I would have a feedback loop in my program. I need to have it send to something with that symbol in it, but something slightly different. You can have the symbol be part of another symbol. So I can do #1 underscore MSG, right, for message. And it will actually replace that with whatever I name it underscore MSG. Save this. Go back in here. Now we need to give it first. The first argument was what we want to call it. Let's call it like channel A or chan A. And then the second argument was what the operation we're going to use, which we'll use net negative again. Now double click on this version, this instance, and now you can see it has a unique receive, this receive channel A, and it sends out on channel A underscore MSG. And so I could have multiple versions of this and have this one be channel B. And instead of it being a minus, say it's a plus. And in this instance, now it's a plus and it's got unique sends and receives. So let's try this out. And to save on patch cords, let's do some sends and receives of the matrices of each channel up here. So let's do a send chance, just do CH. CHB. That way it's different than the one that's getting received in the external patcher. I'm going to have this one be channel A. That's channel B. And then let's see, I want to duplicate these and turn them into receives over here. And channel A, channel B are coming in, and then a jit.p window down here, and there you go. So that's A minus B, and if I wanted to change it to, well, here, let's make it so that we can experiment with this. There's an easy list of different operations that we can grab. Let's go to make a jit.op and go into the help file for jit.op. And now go to this tab up here that says using multiple operators and grab one of these umenus that's already populated with all the operators. Copy that, close this. Paste it. Sorry. All I did is I went into the help file. It's really simple. Go into the help file for jit.op. Click on the using multiple operators and grab this umenu and copy it. That's all I'm doing. I'm just stealing this umenu so that I don't have to build it all. Because this has all the different operators already in it. All right? So you got this? Got it? Copy it. You can close, once you got that copy, you can close that help file and paste it over here. Okay? So if I wanted to send messages to matrix op 2 over here that I've named channel A, right? I could use my inlets, but say I couldn't use my inlets, or I didn't want to use my inlets, and I wanted to use the unique sends and receives that we had already set up. What would I send this to? Right here. This is what we named it, remember? Receive chan A. So if we send this to chan A, then it's gonna get received right here. But we need to actually send the word op also, because if you want to change operators, you have to send the message op and then what operation. So add a prepend, right? Remember prepend from the online lesson? It adds a word before a message. So prepend op. Oh, and then don't send the first outlet on this. Send the second outlet, right? The second outlet here says menu item text evaluated as message. If you do the first outlet, then it's only going to send a number, the position of the object, of the item. We want the actual text, so we're using the second outlet, prepending op, and now we send to chan A. And if I wanted to get receiving messages from that, what receive is my message is going to come back on? Remember we said it was the first argument with an underscore MSG, right? So should be chan A underscore MSG will be the receive coming back from that. So try changing it now from, right now it's on minus, try changing it to pass. That just passes whatever's coming in the first inlet. You could change it to exclamation pass, and that will change what's coming in the second inlet. You could change it to multiply, and they'll multiply them together. And if I wanted to say, ask what the current operation that the JIT-op is using, I can send to this, you send the message get state, and that asks the JIT.op in here. That get state message comes in the chan A and goes in here, and then comes back out the outlet or the chan A message. It will reply to you, and it says op multiply, because that's what currently we've set for our operation. Cool? Confused?
Both of you.
Is everybody's working? All right, let's see. What else can we look at? So we built this crossfader and it works, right? Let me show you. You didn't have to do this. There was an object already to do this, but I wanted to show you how to do it so you understand what's going on with the matrix. An identical process, the same amount of processor intensity and so forth, is called JIT.xfade. And it's basically just a shortcut of everything we did here in the mixer, where it's multiplying something by a scaling value first and then adding them together. It's the identical, it'll look identical. So take the channel A and channel B inputs. Let's just grab these receives from over here and duplicate them, so I don't have a bunch of patch cables going everywhere. And another P window down here. Actually, I'm just going to duplicate this one next to it. Okay, and the parameter for fading in JIT.xfade is you have to send the word xfade followed by a value between 0 and 1. So we can just send this the output of this slider, right? We'll have to scale it again, right? Because it's outputting between 0 and 127. So scale this, scale 0, 127 to between 0 and 1. Send the sliders input into that as well. And now we have to prepend the word X fade, right? Prepend X fade. Or actually, let's do it this way. You can use a wildcard message too. You can say message X fade and then $1, which is a wildcard. So whatever the value is, it's going to come through here and it's going to replace that $1. So that's an even easier method of doing this. So now, and as you can see, it's an identical crossfade. Sometimes you'll see, if you end up using like shader-based crossfaders, you never know how that shader is coded, and some crossfaders might look slightly different than others. Because one thing that'll often, if a crossfader its output does look different, a lot of times the difference is the curve. Right now, this is a completely linear crossfade, and when you have a 50-50 mix between these channels, you'll actually notice that your intensity overall will dip down in the center because half pixels of one and half pixels of the other don't add up to the full brightness of either one of them. So sometimes and you'll notice that in sound a lot when you're crossfading in sound. If you crossfade between two different things of equal volume, it dips down in the middle. Same thing happens with pixel intensity brightnesses. So some crossfade stuff, this does not do it. This is just completely linear. But some crossfaders that are like shader based and stuff, they'll have an actual curve that will try to adjust for that brightness dip in the center. So there could be some differences in the kinds of crossfades. These are identical. So that's telling you they're doing the identical math operations on the matrix. Okay, it's 2:20. We've got plenty of time. Let's look at some basic image correction in Jitter. There's an object that you could probably do some of your own image correction by doing a bunch of different operations. Like if you wanted it to be brighter, you can multiply it by something and then maybe add it to itself if you wanted to adjust the brightness, contrast, so forth. There's an object that does basic brightness, contrast, and saturation, and it's called JIT.BRCOSA. BRCOSA. The BR stands for brightness, the CO stands for contrast, and the SA stands for saturation. So just choose one of the channels. Let's use channel B. I'm gonna take this receive for channel B, bring it down here. I'm gonna put a message down so I can get some margin space. All right, so I got channel B coming in here. I can put that into the BRCOSA, out to a JIT.P window. And this patch, by the way, is just to demonstrate all these different functions. It's definitely not an optimized patch. If you're really using these kind of things, you don't want to have a whole bunch of P windows all over the place. You'll probably notice as you start adding your 5th or 6th or 10th P window that you'll start lowering your FPS. All right, so that just passes through without any change by default until we actually send values to it. And there's 3 different parameters: brightness, contrast, saturation. We could use a True windows like they have here in the help file, but that's cheating. It's just too easy. It's not cheating. It's just too easy. We're gonna do more scale objects and stuff. All right, because I want to show you some other interface objects. one interface object. Let's use, instead of using sliders now, let's use dials. Dial. Dial's pretty much the same as slider, it's just a dial, but it gives you the exact same ranges by default, 0 to 127. So we're going to use the same scale object. Actually, we can just grab this one up here, duplicate it and bring it down. That way we don't have to make it again. Send that in there. And message, we'll use our wildcard again. We're at brightness. Brightness, $1. Actually, okay. Yeah, and that's right. We want brightness, we want to go between 0 and 1. There's never any reason to have a brightness less than 0. A negative brightness is still black. Some of these brightness, the contrast and saturation, negative values actually do give you different results. So let's take a look at that. Brightness, it's always going... Actually, brightness, we can go a brightness above 1, right? Because 1 only gives us full brightness, but what if we want to pump the brightness up? So let's change this maximum number on this scale to a max, between scaling 0 to 127, between 0 and 5. So now it can be up to 5 times brighter than the image, than the input image. So that actually gives us some actual brightness adjustability. Let's duplicate this scale, but change the values here from 0 to 5. Let's change this for scaling 0 to 127 between -5 and +5. And make sure you put those periods in the 5 so that we get float values. And message, and this one is contrast, $1. And need a dial for that. And I'm going to duplicate this again, and contrast and saturation. Change this word contrast to saturation. Now you can adjust the contrast and saturation. Now, contrast and saturation, if you do negative, a contrast below 1, if you're in the negative numbers, what it's doing is it's making it closer to the opposite color. Same with saturation. So if you're saturating below 0, you're adding whatever the opposite value is to that pixel. So if it was full red, and I guess it probably has to, if it was full red, it probably makes a decision between, I think it chooses full blue as the opposite of full red. But full green could be just as much the opposite of full red. There's three values. Well, there's 4 if you count alpha, but alpha applies to any color. All right, so great. Now we got BR COSA. Let's see, what else do I want to show you? Let me show you submatrices. Submatrix is a way of breaking your matrix up into smaller pieces. So let's do JIT.submatrix. There we go. When you do a JIT.submatrix, the way it breaks it up is it breaks it up based on the dimensions of the submatrix. So if our input is, let's see, add over here, add a JIT.fps GUI. And change down here where it says FPS, grab this arrow and change it to dimensions. So our input resolution is 320 by 240 on this video. So if I did a JIT submatrix with at dimension, at dim for dimension, 100, 100, it's going to slice a 100 by 100 pixel section out of that input raster of 320 by 240. It's going to take the first 300 pixels, or first 100 pixels to the left and or to the right, and the first 100 pixels down from the top. That's the way it does the Y values in Jitter, and also in OpenGL. A Y value of 0 is actually at the top left corner. Or, 0, 0 is the top left corner instead of being the bottom left corner. So go ahead and pass this into another jit.p window. And you see that's just the very top corner. If we want to change, or is it the bottom corner? No, it's the top corner, isn't it? Hard to say. Maybe let me make it smaller.
Yeah, that's the top one.
Yeah, that's the top corner. So if we want to change where that window is placed, you have to give it what's called an offset. So add a POC object, POC offset 0, 0. Remember, we're using POC because if we used PAC, then we'd have to either make a change in the first inlet, and since the first inlet is offset, the word offset, and we're not going to be changing that, we want it to use a POC so that it changes if any of the inlets are changed. So add a couple int boxes over here, number boxes, to these second and third inlets. So now it's going to send, if I make any changes in this, it will send the word offset with those following two values. Put that into the jit.submatrix, and now I can actually change where that is. If you go too far, it's actually going to stretch those pixels. So like if you scroll so far to the right that you don't have 100 pixels left, you're trying to make a submatrix 100 pixels wide, but you've scrolled all the way to 300 or 400. What's our dimensions? 320. So if I scroll above 300, then what it's going to do is when it gets to the edge of the pixel, it will just stretch that pixel onto the edge to whatever the dimensions of your submatrix is. So if you end up picking a number above 320, it just chooses the pixel at the very end of that and just stretches it all the way across, which is why you end up with horizontal lines like that. But yeah, so basically that would be where the submatrix is placed, is the offset, and then how big it is the dimensions. You could grab this stuff, duplicate it, and change this POC offset to POC dim. And now you could change the dimensions as well to something else. And that's how you could isolate one little section of the matrix into a submatrix. What if you want to take different submatrices and glue them together to make a bigger matrix? You can do that too. It's called jit.glue. Jit.glue. And then with jit.glue, you basically just specify with attributes how many columns and rows, how many matrices wide, submatrices wide and deep it is. Let's just make at rows 1 and at columns 2. And now we can glue two submatrices together. The thing is, though, they both have to be the same size. If you don't have both of your submatrices in this jit.glue the same size, same dimensions with the same offset, then you're only going to see the one coming into the left. So go ahead and pass this submatrix into the left inlet and send it to another P window down here. And we don't have a second inlet yet. What did I do wrong? I think I missed an M, an N. I think there's an N in column. Yeah, there we go. And so now this one's black because I haven't sent anything into it yet. Let's duplicate this submatrix and send the dim and offset, the same dim and offset messages into both matrices. That way they're always going to be the same size. And let's find, where's channel A? We'll send channel A into the other one. I'll grab this channel A. So channel A is going to go into that submatrix, and then this submatrix is going to come out into there. That should work. Oh, make a change in these so that they end up being the same. There we go. And now you see it's glued these two matrices together. Submatrices together. Is that working for everybody?
No.
What isn't working? Do you have them side by side, but one of them is black?
Just trying to put all the cables together.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just make sure that this offset and dim, that they go to both of these. That way they're always the same. Because if they're not the same, then this one will be here and this one will be black. And then after you do that, just make a change to make these both be the same. Because it's not going to be the same until you actually make a change here.
I'm just getting flashing squares. Do
You
know
probably
what
just have a,
parameters?
it's just your size of your submatrix is so small that you're only getting maybe 1 pixel.
Yeah.
So let's see, dim 100, 100, pack offset, pack dim. So change that pack dim, put something in that, put 100, 100 in there, back in there. There you go. See, right now you had your submatrix matrices were 0, meaning it's only 1 pixel. Working. Yours is working?
Yeah, mine's working.
So yours is probably just that you're, oh, right. So that needs to go in that there. There you go. Is yours working? Or you're doing something else, Dave?
No, I'm taking notes.
You're just taking notes.
for
Okay.
the news.
Yours working? Do you have the half and half? Oh, it's really getting slow. Wow. Well, you have this coming from 2 different places. This P window. Oh, yeah. Take that off and put it in over there. Oh, okay. Yeah, wow, you're running out of.
5 years ago.
Save it.
Yeah, I got
And save another version. As soon as it stops spinning wheel. Stop your metro first of all. Maybe that will stop it. Did you make the change in the thing where at automatic 0 on these things? Oh, that's all right.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
I mean, they probably won't stop them, but
Yeah, you don't need.
try to stop your
Do
moving
a
players.
tablet, but have them stop.
This is the first thing I
What I would do is save a different version of this, save like a class 6A, and go in and delete all these P windows and just leave the ones we're working on right now. That's just gonna work better. It's because you have 100 P windows. And it's my fault, because I told you guys to do that, but.
Yeah,
Like sliders are really
Yeah,
hard to get.
Hmm?
The sliders are really hard to get.
Yeah, the dials, they are.
Yeah.
Try just making them bigger. They're of limited use. If you want more, if you wanted more resolution on your slider, right? Because right now we have 127 steps on this slider. And those 127 steps are getting scaled anywhere between 0 and 5 or -5 and 5. But I could go into the into the parameters for this slider. Go to inspector, and change its number of steps range to something more like 500, and then scale for 0 to 500, and that would give me more increments. You would probably want to make your slider bigger so that you can actually get those increments with your mouse. But yeah. All right. So that's JIT, glue, JIT, submatrix. That's almost everything I wanted to look at today. We were supposed to do the start model view controller stuff today, but I just don't have the energy yet. So we'll start that next week.
That's good.
Yeah, right? I don't think anybody has. Yeah, right? Yeah, we're gonna start that next week. But essentially, what most of model view controller paradigm is optimizing your patch with these external patchers and B patchers and stuff, so that it doesn't look like this of having objects everywhere. You're using instances that are all going to be able to be updated from one place, and all the changes get conformed. I'll talk more about it next week, but your homework for today, for tomorrow, for next week, is I'm sorry, I'm just as confused as you are. No,
I don't know if that's true.
your homework for next week is to take you're going to want to redo. You're not going to want to use our class example because it's a mess. I want you to take these two different players, right, and instead of doing 2 of them, have 4 of them, and have a mixer that mixes between 4 channels. Now, obviously, you're not going to be able to use this. You're not going to be able to use this slider that only goes between one channel or the other channel. You'll have to have 4 sliders, 1 for each channel, setting the intensity of each thing. So basically, what you do is you have the video coming out. I'm just giving you guys a hint, but you guys are going to have to do this for your homework. You'll have the video coming out of this. That will go down into JIT.op. At op, instead of at op plus, it'll be at op multiply, right? Because the first thing we did do is set our intensities the way we did in, let me open up our little mixer sub patch here, right? So this is each channel will have one of these JIT.op at op multiplies with each slider for that channel will feed this number box that's going to be setting what you're multiplying it by. So you'll have 4 of these. And then all 4 of those outputs will need to get added together. You could use a series of plus, where you're adding channel 1 to channel 2, and then you're adding that to channel 3, and then adding that to channel 4. But a more efficient way is to use, just like when we in our slot machine, we used the plus. We ended up using a whole bunch of those plus objects. But a more efficient way is to use an expression object to be able to add more than one thing. There's a JIT.expression that'll allow you to add more than 2 things as well. Let me show you that. So somewhere in your patcher here, so for your example, put a JIT.expr, JIT.expression. Open up the help file for this, and here's kind of, it's got its own weird kind of syntax. Let me see. There's an easy one to steal. Not really. But basically, it's these in bracket 0 would be the first inlet, right? Here, inlet 0, in 0. So we could go in 0 plus in 1 plus in 2 plus in 3. That will give us all 4 inlet, or that will add the first 4 inlets together. Yes, the syntax is weird and confusing, but I'm giving it to you. If you want to do other things with JIT expression, you'll have to learn the syntax, and it is a beast, but you can do some pretty amazing things if you learn it. We're not going to do a heck of a lot of JIT expression syntax in this course, though. But I definitely suggest you guys to look at the help file, read the reference on how to do these JIT expressions, because you can do some really cool shit. All right, in open bracket, 0, close bracket, plus no spaces. The spaces throw it off. It thinks it's a parameter if you put a space or an argument. In 0 plus in 1 plus in, oh shit. Oh wait, there it is. Okay, good. In 2, come on, get back in there. There we go. In 2 plus in 3. Like that. Now, it still, for whatever reason, only has 2 inlets. Even though we defined 4 inlets in our expression, we actually have to add an attribute to this object to make it have more inlets. And the attribute is at inputs 4. Now it has 4 inputs. Okay, so there it is. That it will be the expression that you use to add those various values together. So right here. Let me copy this and put it in the other screen so I can show you guys what you're going to do. I mean, so that I can explain what you're going to do. So you'll have 4 of these JIT.ops. 1 for each video channel. The videos will be coming out of these bpatchers. I want you also, I want you to use patcher arguments to do unique sends and receives. I want the stuff coming out of this bpatcher, I don't want any patch cords coming out of them. So go back into your bpatcher file and add sends and receives. Unique sends and receives with arguments. And then when you instantiate your bpatcher, you'll have to add those arguments. It's a little different, you know, when we were doing it before, we were adding the arguments directly, right, on this matrix op, right? We put the arguments in the title. bpatcher, you can't put them in the title, but it's in the inspector. You can add arguments in the inspector. If you go over here, so Seth, this would be how you'd add, and everyone else is going to do this too. In the inspector for this bpatcher, down here is arguments. And you can edit arguments and add the arguments that you want. So you would set it up to have its own unique sends and receives. So this one, you know, you might want that to be the first argument. So the first argument is whatever you name it to give it a unique send and receive. So this would be like channel A or channel A. But it means to not have a space in it, because as soon as you put a space, the next thing that you type now is the second argument, right? You probably are only going to need, for unique sends and receives, you only need 1 argument for this to give it a name, to give it a unique name. So I can just say arguments, CHA. And if I go into my video player source file and I do a send #1 Save it. Now this instantiated version that has that argument should have a send object coming out of it that is called CHA. So I can go receive CHA. And actually my CHA over here might mess me up. Let me change this to something completely different. Let me just call this test A. And now I can receive test. What did I think I used the capital T, right? Like that. And there it is, without any. So in your homework, I don't want anything coming out of the bottom of this. I want you to use all unique sends and receives using patcher arguments. Okay? So 4 channels, instantiated B patchers with unique sends that are created by your arguments for that patcher, and then mix them together. Okay? Any questions? Great. Have a good rest of your week, and then next week we'll get to the exciting topic of model view controllers.